If you have decided to start homeschooling, or like this video implies, restart homeschooling, then I bet I can pretty much read your mind. And it's not because I'm a mind reader or I have some superpower. It's just because almost everybody, without exception, tends to do the same thing, following almost exactly the same journey, making the same mistakes. And I'd like to save you some of that time. So let me walk you through what I believe is more than likely your journey that's brought you here. And then let's see if we can fix some things before they go sideways. When people start homeschooling or decide that they want to start homeschooling, the first question that you tend to answer is, what curriculum should I use? There is the idea that most of the time, once you figure out your curriculum, you buy it, you pull your kids out of school, and then you just start doing the thing. You can do that, and that can work, but it usually doesn't. So the alternative is you go one layer deeper and you ask the question, what curriculum should I use? And then you start researching curriculum. And holy moly, there's a lot of curriculum. There's so much out there, and it feels like this endless ocean without a life vest, and you are just swimming, trying to keep your head above the water. There's so much information, there's so many resources, and they're all telling you that this is the one. This is the solution to your children's educational problem. Well, what do you do now? How do I know which one to choose? What's the right approach for us? I'm not an educator. What am I looking at, right? And so what do? You probably have a friend or several friends who you know who are already homeschooling. You need a guide. You need some help. You need some direction. So you talk to them and you ask them what they're using. And if you like them and they seem stable and they seem to enjoy what they're doing, well, if it's working for them, it'll work for me. And so naturally, you make the conclusion that if you do what your friends are doing and you use the same curriculum and you kind of follow what they're doing, you could talk to them every once in a while, then you'll just bring that over to your family and that working program will work for you. I don't know if you guys know this, but this starts to approach very similar to the traditional school approach, which is what works for this child will work for these children, right? It is a one size fits all approach. And of course, it's way more particularized or atomized when we're talking about individual families. But as soon as we start imitating a way that works for someone and assuming it'll work for us, that's where things start to get dangerous. And that is the same approach that traditional schools make. So you ask your friend, what are you using? Sounds good. Finally, some direction. You go out, you buy those materials, or you try to kind of model what your curriculum is pretty similarly to what they're doing. Maybe you see some stuff, oh, that's kind of expensive, but by and large, and then you decide to give it a try. There's a whole lot of other things that can happen in the middle, but you decide to give it a try. And if you start rolling out for a little bit, pretty quickly you're going to find, I don't love this. Maybe it feels forced or awkward when you're going through the materials. Maybe your kids are a little more resistant than theirs are, and things just don't seem to be as smooth and encouraging and exciting as you had always hoped they would be, as you kind of assumed they would be, since this is such a big deal for our family. And so you start to have a little bit of curriculum regret, some remorse, some hard feelings, and you start the research cycle over again. Okay, well, maybe this isn't it. You're starting to at least get some experience, some boots on the ground about what the day to day might look like. And so you go back to try and find something that better suits your family. You research, and again, you're in the ocean. Maybe now you have a life vest, but there's no raft, and it's a big ocean, and you're going to be swimming for a long time before you find an island. So you're looking and you're looking, trying to find the things. You finally settle on something that the marketing hit just right, sold you on being the perfect solution for your family. You make the buy. It's more than you want to spend. You try it out. Maybe it's good for a week or two. You experience some resistance, and then the cycle repeats, right? regret, remorse, research, purchase, try, right? And it could go on and on like this forever, right? For as long as you homeschool. Or there's another trajectory that could happen, right? So perhaps it's not an endless cycle of regret. Perhaps you just go with a curriculum. Maybe it was the recommendation of your friend, and you start rolling it out, and it's maybe not great, but you just do what it says. A lot of homeschool curriculums are kind of designed in such a way. You just insert activity, insert lesson, read these words, do this thing, grade this, and then you kind of just roll through a system, and you're doing it, and you feel like you're doing it because, well, look, you're making progress through the book, so we're doing it. Okay, here's the problem with that too. It's not that that curriculum necessarily is automatically bad, and I'm not saying that you're automatically doing a bad job, but the problem is that curriculum is really the guide, the director, the administrator of your homeschool. It's calling the shots. Because if you don't know where you're going, something else or someone else is more than happy to take that place for you. So the problem is not that we've used or decided to use a particular curriculum. The problem is the framework that we go into that curriculum with. Okay, so if any of this sounds familiar, this, oh my goodness, what curriculum do I use? The ask a friend for a recommendation, the research, purchase, implement, regret, research, purchase, implement, regret. You know, that cycle. If you've been down that road, or if you can feel yourself sliding down that road, wherever you are in that journey, those next stages are more than likely coming. And all the things that happen in between with your homeschool, especially the resistance from your children, the dwindled excitement, perhaps your kids have already been in public school, and so they already kind of have some different expectations of what education is supposed to look like, and it's just not all working together. If you'd like to avoid that and you're resonating with what I'm saying, okay, well, the only reason I can't say that is because I've literally spoken personally to hundreds of homeschooling families, especially those at the stage of just getting started or burning out and needing something new, right? So if you are starting or looking to restart homeschooling and you actually want it to be successful, you are definitely in the right place. So let's talk about how this works. Again, I've seen hundreds of families walk through this cycle, and these patterns just are true across homeschooling. For whatever reason, when people get started, if they don't really know what they're doing, then they're going to do these certain things. And these are not the things that lead to success. This is just what you do if you don't know what to do. And almost everybody starts out in the same place. I've spoken to experienced educators who are teachers in public school or even private school, decided to leave, but they're still taking the traditional school framework that they more than likely experience themselves and applying it to their homeschool. And that's not going to work either. Your homeschool is a completely different format, program, approach than anything you've ever done before. It's unique not only to, you know, as a form of education, it's unique to you, like specifically, not just we homeschoolers are different than traditional school, but our family is different than other homeschoolers, right? There should be a personalized aspect of every single homeschooling family, even if you're using the exact same materials as something else, even if you're constricted to a schedule that works with a co-op or other kind of outside resources that support your homeschool. The point is, the foundation that your homeschool is built on needs to be unique to you because that's going to be the energy and the direction that guides your entire educational process for your children. So you need to get clear about what those things are, or else you're going to end up following someone else, being told what to do by something else, and you're not going to have an argument against it, right? So when your curriculum says do this, you're just going to do it. If it says jump, you jump because it becomes the lead and it becomes the guide. And I want to see you as the parent, as the leader of your children's education, become the lead, become the guide, and become confident and equipped to be able to do that successfully. So again, it requires a different approach. If you keep doing things the same way, you're going to keep getting the same results, right? You can't just hope better education into your children. You actually have to change the way that you're going about doing it. So let's talk about what that might look like. What I teach my clients, the families that I work with, and just people that I talk to is slow down and back up. You can start homeschooling without knowing everything that you're going to do. Let's clear up some misconceptions about homeschooling. You don't have to have everything purchased before you get started. You don't have to teach every subject when you first start. When you do start, you don't have to teach every subject every day. You don't have to have an individualized curriculum at every age and every subject for each child that you have, right? And the more and more have tos that we put on ourselves, the more and more restricted your homeschool is going to be, and the more difficult it is going to be to operate. So I'm giving you permission to remove some of those obligations. When you first start homeschooling, before you have everything figured out, but you need your kids to not be, let's say, in public school for whatever the reason might be, start with these things first, and we'll build on the rest. Start with this. Get a really clear schedule that doesn't have to be we're going to do this at this time, this and this time. In fact, what I really mean is get really clear about your routines. Your routines will be the kind of stabilizing force that takes you through each and every day. What do I mean by a routine versus like a scheduled thing? You can say at 8 a.m. every morning, we, you know, start our homeschooling day. You could do that. But better than that, other than really certain fixed points that need to be rooted in a specific time, let's say we're waking up by 7. Okay, or 7:30 or 6:30, and that's going to look different for you. But maybe you have a wake up time that's pretty much grounded. Then for the rest of the day, unless it needs to be fixed at a certain point around appointments or whatever else, I would let you have a window in which you do certain things. You start with your morning routines, like wake up, get yourself dressed, comb your hair, brush your teeth, eat breakfast. Maybe making breakfast is a part of their routine. Maybe serving their younger siblings is a part of their routine. Maybe you make breakfast for them because you're a rock star. That's great too, right? But whatever it is, put a certain set of expectations in there. As soon as that's done, do we leave our bowls on the table if we had cereal or our plates or whatever else? Or do we put them in the dishes? Do we rinse them off or do we put them in the dishwasher? Right? Have everything laid out. Actually attach an expectation to the routine, and those things will work together. Don't only say what needs to be done, have an expectation of how it needs to be done. And it will give your children clarity, and clarity will give them confidence when they actually know how to do something well. And when they do it, praise them for it, just as an FYI. Okay, so set the routine, and then what do they do next? Like there needs to be a routine for life stuff, and there should be a routine for the academic component of homeschooling as well. Because reality check, when you decide to start homeschooling, you're doing everything. No longer is education and learning restricted to this false idea that academics is school and everything else is life. Now, life is a part of your children's school. And so learning to be a well-rounded member of your family is a part of your child's education. So allow that to be a part of their education and credit them for that being a part of their education. Okay, so that means life stuff fits in, academic stuff fits in. Okay, what do they do next? Where do they go? Do they sit at the table? Is there a homeschooling space? When do they start academics? Is there something they do before? Perhaps you have them do 15 minutes of quiet reading while you get yourself ready, or journaling. Or perhaps you have a list of things that need to happen that day and you go through it with them, right? But if you do something called time blocking, you will find that to be incredibly helpful, meaning you set a group of things that need to be done within a certain block. You knock that block out, then you have these big anchor points, like let's say breakfast, lunch, and dinner, for instance. Meals tend to be pretty anchoring points in your day, especially for your kids. And then you have time blocks around each other thing. You have a morning time block where these are the things we're doing. And then we have lunch, it's an anchor point. And then we have an afternoon time block. Between this and this, we're going to be working on these things. These are the things within the list. You can do them in whatever order. Some things will take longer. We won't get to everything, but this is the block of things that we're doing during this time. And then you transition into your evening or afternoon anchor. Maybe you do an afternoon nap. Maybe you have littles. And all of these things can allow you to start fitting yourself into your children's homeschool. Hey, I have older kids. This is where their independent time, their independent studies is going to work and fit in. I have younger kids, they need more one-on-one attention. And when older kids are doing this, this is when I'm doing this with them, right? So this allows you to start to create a formula that fits everybody without having to do everything with everyone all the time. I think a lot of families, when they start homeschooling, think we sit down, We do school, everybody's listening, I have a whiteboard, we're smiling, and it's regimented in such a way you can do that, but it's regimented in such a way where you end up modeling what you know, which is typically a classroom. And I'm not saying that can't work or that it never works. It just doesn't have to be the only thing that works for you. So just know your options. Okay, so you regiment yourself with routines and expectations which work together. And that might be the only thing you have when you start homeschooling. Again, you don't have to have everything figured out. You can start with just those foundations and get them down really well. I would spend a 2 week training period of, hey, we're going through a homeschool retro, like routines, and we're going to do these things every day. And then we'll add a subject. Maybe you find the perfect history book and you're sitting down and you're reading it together and you're fitting it in to the rest of your routines because it's all of life. If it doesn't include all of their academics right now, that's okay. There's plenty to learn. I mean, maybe there's some things that we do together. There's, time in the kitchen or outdoor activities or field trips. Start to fit that stuff into your weekly schedule. See where everything lands. Test it and then continue to build. Okay, so the reason I say if you need to start, you can start to do those things without having anything else figured out. And that will be a robust education and a lot for kids to take in. So just focus on those for a little bit. And I can tell you this as a school principal, your first 2 weeks for a child in a school, they're not learning anything. It's all routines, it's all expectations. Teachers are constantly correcting until certain things become programmed in their mind. And it's only then when they've really got security and understanding who they are, their peers, who their teacher is, what's expected, and they start to be able to learn and memorize and act out on those things, then they have the ability to actually start taking in new information. So if you drop everything at once, they're they're going to miss a lot anyways. So if you just focus on a little and do it really well, you can build on that. Basically, you're not losing anything. The first couple weeks, again, as a school principal, as a teacher, I can tell you, by and large, is mostly loss anyways. You're just trying to set expectations and help them learn how to do school before you're actually doing the thing. So you're learning how to do homeschool together. Okay, so you figure that out. What do you do now? Like we pulled them out, we got some routines going, we're kind of trial and error figuring some things out. What do you ground yourself in? This is actually the most important part. Your family has a very unique set of values and goals that separate you from anyone and everyone else. You may share values with many others. If you're a person of faith like myself, then those values that are rooted in your faith are going to be shared with many other people. But the way that they're lived out are also going to be unique to your family, right? So we need to get crystal clear on who we are. And in the Homeschool Mastery Group, which is kind of my consulting program, we call this the Mission Values Goals Framework. Get very clear on your mission and create a mission statement for your family. Who are we? And really what this is the end goal that you're setting the trajectory for your children, not just for their education, but for the development of their person and their character. And the mission is when they arrive, like kind of like as a Christian, it's like when I get to heaven. Okay, well, everything else in life is your entire life, right? So when you get to heaven as the end, even if it's gonna take everything before you finally arrive there, the kind of person you want your child to become is really your mission, right? And it's rooted in the identity of your family. I think the distinctiveness of your family is what makes you special. It's what makes what you can offer your children different than anyone else. And since you're the one who's giving them their education, why not ground it in something that you believe is worth living your life by, right? And imparting that to your children. And this will actually carry everything else. This is a part of your foundation that the rest of their education will rest on. Okay, so set the end goal. This is the X on the treasure map. Okay, the next thing is your core values as a family. We as a family, let's say, have a few core values that govern everything we do. Meaning, if we're doing math, these values will still govern it. If we're on a field trip, these values will still govern it. If we're in relationships, these values will still govern those relationships, right? So it's things not like get a good grade. It's things like trying your best could be a core value. Like whatever you do, or a Bible verse, whatever your hand finds to do it with your might. Absolutely. That could be a core value. It could be integrity. We're going to do things honestly. You might have to have a sit down with your child. I understand that you were afraid of getting it wrong. But by cheating, you're not being honest with me or yourself. And, so you start to turn their behaviors, you start to turn their academic outcomes back towards your values because your values will guide you along the way. They're kind of like if you're on this journey, they're the fuel that keeps you moving towards your end goal. And then the last thing is goals, right? Mission, values, goals. The goals is short term and long term. It's what do you actually want to achieve? This could be, if I've got a kindergartner, I want to be reading with my child by the end of the year. And you can define what level that means. And then that's a longer goal, right? That might be the start of the year. We want to get to this point where we're reading. Well, then break that down into smaller pieces. We're going to learn the alphabet, right? We're going to learn phonics, the letters and the sounds and the letter blends. We're going to start to learn sight words, right? The English language is confusing. It doesn't always follow its own rules. So some words just need to be memorized. And you start to break down those pieces and you add them all together. And when you get to the end, all those pieces were necessary in order to reach the goal. So again, short-term and long-term goals. And they could be not just academics. They could be athletic, right? My family, I do jujitsu. So my girls, jujitsu is going to be a part of the game. And maybe there's a new submission that my girls want to learn. Great. Let's put a timestamp on it. Let's set the goal. Let's actually do the things to practice toward that goal, and we can see ourselves nearing that end objective. Okay, so what do the goals do on this journey? Remember, your mission is the destination. Your values are the fuel that will get you there. Well, your goals are the milestones or the signposts along your journey, right? Just like when you see you're on that long road trip and you see 50 miles till the place that you're trying to arrive. Well, what happens after you've passed it? Well, that is until you reach it, it's something you're looking towards. After you've reached it, it's something you can look back on. So no matter what, it gives you confidence in your homeschool. We're getting closer towards our goal. Or when your child comes to you at some point, which will happen. I'm stupid. I can't learn anything. Right? We all go through these slumps, and your children will have them too, and that's okay. But how do you get them over that and through that? Well, look at your goals. Look at the things you've already accomplished. Look, you can say this, but you learn to read, you learn to write, you learn to construct sentences, you learn to write paragraphs, you've read this many books, right? These can all be milestones that you can look back on to testify to what they're doing, to the growth that they've made. And then the future goals are still in front of them, and you can show them that they're moving towards and making progress. So no matter where you are in your goals, completed or uncompleted, they can be motivators for you and for your children that you're actually moving forward. And if everything seems like it's getting further and further away, it's possible that you may need to reassess your goals, right? Sometimes our goals are a little bit out of reach and we got to break them down into smaller pieces. That's okay too. Okay, so let's talk one more time about that solution. Before you buy curriculum, before you copy what someone else is doing, you need to get crystal clear on who you are in order to not allow your friend to be your administrator or director, in order to ensure that the curriculum isn't telling you what to do. You need to define who you are. You need to define where you're going and how you're going to get there, your mission, your values, and your goals. And then once you have a foundation laid, you can lay things on top of that that will not rock you, right? So when your curriculum isn't great, you can see, okay, does this align with our values? If it doesn't, throw that curriculum out. Find something that does. Is it pushing us towards our mission? And if some aspects are or some aspects aren't, you can also make changes. Look, this curriculum's great most of the time, but today we're going off track. Your curriculum is a suggestion for you. You ultimately are the boss. So you get to decide where you're going and how you're going to get there. Excuse me. So again, who or what is leading your homeschool? If it's not you, it's something else or someone else. And as a home educator, I believe it needs to be you. So again, get clear on who you are, what you want to be, how you want to be, and how you're going to get there with your goals. Once you figure that out, you can start adding layers to it. Okay, we're gonna add a subject. Okay, we're gonna add a routine. Okay, we're gonna add an expectation. Okay, that's not working. We're gonna pivot, but we're gonna keep moving towards our goals. All right, we're gonna add an extracurricular. We're gonna add a small group. We're gonna add a co-op. You can keep adding and adding and adding and piece out every part of your children's education. All you need to do is make sure that they are learning not that they're learning everything. If your children are moving forward, they already may be above their peers in so many different ways. Because a lot of kids get stuck and they stay there and they get moved on, shuffled along, and they never move forward, right? So that doesn't have to be you. And you also don't have to do what everyone else is doing. And you don't have to copy what someone else tells you to do. What you need to do is figure out who you are and what you want, get clear on it, and then start building towards that. Now, if this still sounds terrifying, well, I would encourage you to check out the links below, right? And let's talk. You can book a free discovery call with me just to talk about getting clear on who you are, where you're going, and how you're going to get there, right? Because the how is honestly the hardest part for a lot of parents. Um, there's a lot of things that we do in the homeschool master route. I'm not going to tell you about all of them. If you're interested in figuring out how to get clear on you and how to get there, then let's talk. Otherwise, I have a free homeschooling community in the link below, as well as our premium community for those who are actually ready to take action, put the work in, and need ongoing accountability and support. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, click the like, click the subscribe, follow along, and keep growing in your journey because my belief is that your children get the best when you become the best version of yourself. A lot of times, parents factor themselves out of the equation. They do everything for their kids, but they neglect themselves. Well, your children want the best version of you. So when your cup is full, I got my little Papa Bear, when your cup is full, who does it overflow down into? Your children. And when you're running on empty, that's going to affect them too. You don't have much to give them when that's the case, right? So be the best version of yourself, and then your children will get the best version of you, which means necessarily they're going to get the best education, best home education possible from their parents who are learning, growing, and excelling, right? So if that's what you want, check the links, subscribe, follow along, and I'll see you next time.